I still remember the exact moment my world cracked open like a fault line splitting beneath my feet. It was a regular evening, the kind where the hum of daily life drowns out the possibility of disaster. The dishes were drying on the rack, the scent of fresh laundry hung in the air, and I had just poured myself a glass of wine, sinking into the couch after a long day. I had no idea that, within the next hour, my entire marriage would be exposed for the lie it was. It started with a single email, a simple notification from the bank. At first, I didn't even plan to open it. I had always trusted Mark to handle our finances. He was the numbers guy, the one who insisted on managing our accounts, investments, and savings. He made it sound so boring, so tedious, that I never questioned it. But something about this particular notification made me pause. Maybe it was intuition, maybe it was fate. When I clicked on it, my breath caught in my throat. A withdrawal. A huge one. $150,000. Gone. I felt my stomach drop, my pulse hammering in my ears. My hands trembled as I scrolled through the details, my mind racing for an explanation. A business investment? An emergency expense? But the transaction note chilled me to my core. Real estate purchase. Real estate? We hadn't talked about buying anything. We had been saving for years, dreaming of upgrading to a bigger house once we were ready to start a family. That money was ours, my savings too. And yet, here it was, vanishing into thin air. Panic gave way to a deep, gnawing suspicion. Mark wasn't home yet. He had late meetings all week. Suddenly, I wasn't so sure those meetings were with clients. My heart pounded as I did something I had never done before. I started digging. It didn't take long to find what I wasn't supposed to see. One click, and I was inside our joint bank account. More withdrawals, more transfers, all leading to one thing: the purchase of a house. But not in our name, not even in his name. It was in her name, Sophie Reynolds. I knew that name. Mark had mentioned her before, just a coworker, just a friend. But deep down, I had always felt something was off about the way he said her name, the way his voice tightened ever so slightly when I asked about his day, and she came up. Now, the truth was staring me in the face. My husband had used our savings to buy a house for his mistress. A sickening wave of betrayal crashed over me. My hands clenched into fists, my nails digging into my palms. How dare he? How long had this been going on? How much had he taken from me? Not just money, but years of my trust, my love, my commitment. I refused to cry. Not yet. Not when there was something much more satisfying I could do. Mark had always underestimated me. He saw me as his wife, his responsibility, someone who stayed in the background while he made the big decisions. He forgot that I wasn't just some naive woman who sat at home waiting for him. I had built my own career, learned my own skills, and one of those skills? Legal research. I wasn't just going to confront him. I was going to destroy him. I scoured through our documents, our contracts, our property agreements. And then, I found exactly what I needed. Mark had made a mistake, a big one. The purchase agreement for the house, his mistress's house, was funded entirely from our joint account. And according to our state's laws, anything purchased with joint funds could legally be claimed by either spouse in a divorce. I didn't have to take revenge in anger. I didn't have to scream, cry, or beg. All I had to do was sign one paper, and the house would be mine. I called my lawyer that night, and then I waited. When Mark came home later, smelling like expensive cologne that wasn't his, he didn't suspect a thing. He kissed me on the cheek, distracted as always, murmuring something about another long day. I smiled, because his long day was about to turn into his worst nightmare. I didn't sleep that night, not because of heartbreak, not because of sadness. No, those emotions had burned away, leaving behind something sharper, cold determination. I lay awake, listening to Mark's steady breathing beside me, wondering how he could sleep so peacefully while living a double life. How many times had he lied to my face? How many nights had he come home from her bed and climbed into ours like nothing had happened? I had loved this man. I had trusted him. But now, I felt nothing but calculated rage. The next morning, I played my role perfectly. I kissed him goodbye, made his coffee just the way he liked it, and watched as he left for work, probably stopping to see her first. I had to bite my tongue to keep from laughing. He had no idea that by the end of the day, his world would come crashing down. I spent the morning at my lawyer's office, going over every detail of our plan. The legal loophole was airtight. Because Mark had purchased the house entirely with our joint savings and hadn't put it under his name, he had no legal claim to it. But I did. And all I had to do was file the paperwork. By noon, it was official. Sophie's dream house? Mine? Mark's secret love nest? Gone. By the time I got home, I felt a kind of calm I hadn't felt in months. My revenge was set in motion, but I wasn't done yet. No, I wanted to watch him break. I waited until he came home that evening, tired, distracted, loosening his tie as he stepped inside. He barely glanced at me as he walked toward the kitchen, probably texting her. "Long day?" I asked sweetly. He sighed, rubbing his temple. "You have no idea." I smiled. Oh, but I did. I let him sit down, let him settle in, let him think that everything was just another normal night. And then I pulled out the envelope. "What's this?" he asked, frowning. "Open it," I said, keeping my voice light. His eyes flickered with confusion, but he obeyed. And as he pulled out the legal document, the proof that I now owned the house he had bought for his mistress, his face drained of all color. For the first time in our marriage, Mark was speechless. He stared at the papers, flipping through them like he could somehow change the words if he read them fast enough. Finally, he looked up. What is this?" His voice was hoarse, disbelieving. I tilted my head. "Oh, just a little something I put together today." I leaned forward, enjoying the way his hands trembled. "You see, darling, when you use our joint savings to buy another woman a house, it legally still belongs to me. So congratulations. You just bought your wife a brand new home." I could see the gears turning in his head, his mind racing to find a way out. This isn't possible. The house isn't in my name." "Exactly," I said, smirking. "Which means you don't own it. But the money that bought it, that was ours. And as your wife, I had every right to claim it." I watched as realization dawned on him. He had cheated, he had lied, and now he had lost. His hands clenched into fists. You had no right." I laughed, cutting him off. "No right? No right? Are you really about to lecture me on rights when you stole our money to play house with your little girlfriend?" Silence. For the first time, he looked scared. Good. I stood up, taking my time, walking around the table until I was right beside him. "Oh, and one more thing," I whispered. "Sophie doesn't know yet." His eyes snapped up to meet mine, panic flashing across his face. "That's right," I said. "She still thinks you bought her that house. And I was thinking, maybe I should be the one to tell her the truth. I mean, it's only fair, don't you think?" I stepped back, letting him fully absorb what I had just said. His face twisted in horror, in realization. He wasn't just losing the house, he was losing everything. I grabbed my phone and with a slow, deliberate motion, dialed her number. I made sure he was watching as I put it on speaker. He lunged forward, trying to grab the phone, but I stepped back. I teased. Wouldn't want to be rude, now would we? The line rang once, twice, and then she picked up. "Mark?" Sophie's voice was soft, sweet, completely unaware of the storm about to hit her. I smiled. "Actually, it's not Mark, it's his wife." Silence. Then a hesitant, "Who?" Oh, you heard me, I said, my voice dripping with amusement. I just wanted to let you know that the house Mark promised you. Yeah, it's mine now. A sharp intake of breath. What? Yep. Turns out when you cheat with a married man, sometimes his real wife gets the last laugh. I looked at Mark, whose face had gone completely pale. So, sweetheart, I just wanted to call and let you know, if you were planning on moving in, you might want to start looking for a new place. She sputtered, trying to form words, but I didn't care to listen. I hung up. Mark just sat there, stunned, his phone slipping from his fingers. I leaned in, just close enough to see the absolute defeat in his eyes. Oh, and Mark, I said softly, pack your bags. Because this house, this one's mine too. And with that, I turned, grabbed my purse, and walked out the door, leaving him to drown in the ruins of his own betrayal.